Welcome to another inspiring episode of Podcast with Sheila, the podcast that is spreading positivity around the world by sharing inspiring life experiences. Today's guest is someone whose life journey beautifully embodies the idea that every chapter of life is a classroom. Alison Gieschen spent over 25 years educating children and running a horse farm. Then, at age 54, she and her husband made a bold leap. They sold everything and began circumnavigating the globe aboard their sailboat. Alison is now a published author and nautical journalist, weaving together her love of teaching, nature, animals, and the sea. In this conversation, we'll dive into courage, reinvention, lessons learned under the stars, and what happens when you trust that life's greatest lessons await beyond comfort. As usual, we aim to educate, motivate, and inspire you. So grab your warm drinks and let's get it rolling. Hello, Alison, and welcome to Podcast with Sheila.
Thank you, Sheila. We love talking about our stories and our challenges, and it's definitely an exciting life.
Wow. I'm excited to hear more from you. Like, as we started earlier, I wanted to ask more questions, but I'm going to leave it for the live proper so that our followers can get to hear what you're talking about as well. I think there's a little bit of feedback from your end, but it's because you are at the harbor, isn't it?
Yes, we are in a harbor, and it's a little windy and a little rocky this morning, so there might be the sounds of the wind and the boat and the water. So, yeah, so I do not have a perfectly quiet space on this 43 feet of my floating home.
No, we are just excited because you are bringing nature to us at home. So hopefully we'll be able to catch a glimpse or a feeling of what you're experiencing as we speak to you. Anyway, what was the moment or decision that led you and your husband to sell everything and set sail?
Well, it kind of goes back to when we met at a sailboat race. My mom, when she retired, decided she was going to be the fastest woman skipper in New Bern, North Carolina. She entered the world of racing, of sailboat racing. And I joined her as often as I could. I was in college. And my cousin brought down this person he worked with at the naval shipyard up in Philadelphia. I was down in North Carolina, and he said to his buddy, "Hey, I want you to come down and be a ringer on my aunt Jerry's boat." Because Dan had won 3 national championships in dinghy racing. So my cousin brought down this young, handsome sailor, and I met him that weekend, and we spent 3 glorious days together. We went windsurfing, scuba diving, sailing. We just hit it off so well. And right before he left, he goes, someday my dream is to sail around the world. I said, mine too. Let's get married. So 4 days later, he proposed, and we had our children, raised our children in our farm for 30 years. And when the last one got married, we said it's time. And we made a 5 year plan, and then we packed up everything and left.
Wow, that's a beautiful love story over there. And you could see the smile over my face and everything else. It's like when you meet your soulmate and both of you have the same dreams, it makes life easier, doesn't it? And it makes you enjoy each other better.
Well, it's such a narrow dream. I mean, how many people have the dream of sailing around, number one, and the courage to do it? Because it's an interesting fact that out of all the people who actually buy a boat and intend to sail around the world, only 10% actually follow through. So
Wow.
90% of the people who set out to do it don't actually even do it.
That's similar to life, like our daily dreams of life is when we set up high dreams. Is just a few people will be able to follow through and keep driving at. It's similar to the things we go through in life, isn't it?
Exactly, it is. It's difficult to follow through on everything, and this is such a life-changing decision because we've given up everything. I mean, we own nothing that's not on this boat, which isn't much, and it makes your life a lot harder, and we face a lot of challenges most people don't face, but the enjoyment we get at the good times, it just makes it all worthwhile.
Wow, I think I have those questions in there somewhere. So I'll be happy for us to go at a slow pace so that we can grasp the story very well. But how did the skills and mindset from your 25 years as a teacher influence how you approach life on the water?
I guess being a teacher, I've always felt like learning is one of the most important things you can do to make yourself better and appreciate your world more. And my mom is my inspiration. She's 95 years old. She still lives on her own. She still walks a mile every day. She's on no medications. And at 91, she broke the national record in the Senior Olympics for the 5K bike race at 91. So she has proven to me that you never should stop learning or should stop trying. And so this is just kind of, her inspiration that we are able to take this journey and know that life is a continuing challenge. It continues forever until you decide not to take that challenge anymore.
Exactly. I can't agree with you any less. Running a horse farm and training equestrians demand patience and trust. What similarities do you see between working with horses and navigating life at sea?
Well, they're both very rebellious, I can tell you that. I mean, horses have their moments where they drive you crazy, and this boat has a lot of moments that drive us crazy. And we learned a lot of problem solving and patience with horses, and we have used those same skills on this boat.
Wow, that's beautiful. Do you think that your experience at sea has stretched you beyond your limit as a person?
Oh, yes, absolutely. In fact, the very first time we set off to cross the Atlantic Ocean, it was our first big ocean crossing. Now, I had prepared by going on a training passage with a man we met at a boat show. We went to boat shows to educate ourselves before this. We traveled all over the country listening to seminars of people who had done this before us and their advice. And there was this one man named John Kretschmer, and he had a seminar on how to sail in storms, which was my biggest fear. Like, going out there, what happens when we're in a really bad storm? And at the end of his seminar, he says, I do have a training passage where I take you out in heavy weather and sail for 1,000 miles in very heavy weather and big seas to see if if you're ready and if you want to gain experience. And I'm like, oh, Dan, this is not a want. I need to do this because he was a merchant marine. He crossed oceans on huge ships. I had not been out in the middle of the ocean other than a cruise ship, which really doesn't count. So I said, I need to do this training passage. So I went on this 1,000 mile training passage, and John Crutchmer said, Allison, you did great. You're ready. You can do this. So, fast forward to our very first ocean crossing on our own boat. And if you've seen the movie The Perfect Storm, where those men get in a boat and there's two storms that close in from either side, and it makes the waves bigger and bigger, and the storm intensifies because it's two systems coming together. Well, that actually happened to us on our very first crossing, and we found ourselves in 20-foot waves crashing on the bow of our boat. It ripped the dinghy right off the bow of the boat, taking the life rails out with the hand hand things it was tied to right out of the bow of the boat, smashing the dinghy through the lifelines, which now is bouncing against the lines that keep our mast up. So we were threatening of under the threat of losing our entire boat. And my husband had to go up on the bow in 20-foot waves and cut it free. And when he cut it free and that dinghy hit the water and I watched it disappear into the waves, I knew that if he went overboard, he was going to be gone in a second. There'd be no chance of rescuing him. I'm like yelling to him, if you go over, I'm going with you because I'm not staying on this boat
Yeah.
by myself. And it was terrifying. And when we got the dinghy loose and we got everything back under control and he's back at the helm, then the real chaos started because the waves are still crashing on the boat and the water was now coming through the holes left by the dinghy being ripped out. So it's raining inside my boat. So all this water is now in the boat, and the electronics all got fried, and it was horrendous. So we ended up doing a U-turn and ending 20 miles south of where we started. We did an 800-mile loop and ended up 20 miles where we started from. So it was not a successful first crossing. We had $14,000 worth of damage to our boat. We had to fix it. So fast forward to when we started sailing again, and I had PTSD. We would go out, and as soon as the weather would start to get a little worse than had been predicted, I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, it's going to happen again!" And I'd have severe anxiety attacks, and I would have breakdowns. And we did make it to the Virgin Islands. We did cross the Atlantic, but every morning I woke up and said, "Today's the day where I'm going to tell Dan I can't do this. Like, I'm too afraid. I have this anxiety." So we pull into the harbor of in St. Martin, and there's 100 boats anchored there. And there's something called an AIS, which every boat has, and it tells you the name of the boat and the location of the boat. And Dan's looking at the harbor with all these boats, and guess who is 3 boats away? John Kretschmer, the man who mentored me
Oh,
my 1,000 mile passage. So we call him up on the marine radio and say, "Hi, John, it's Dan and Allison. We're here. We made it." He goes, "Well, come on over for happy hour." So we get in our dinghy, we go over there for happy hour, and there's a bunch of people there. And so finally, John looks over at me and he says, "So, Allison, how's it going?" And I'm like, "John, it's terrible. We were in this really bad storm, and there was 20-foot waves, and I was so scared, and I'm really scared now." And I'm like babbling, and he starts laughing at me. I'm like, "You're laughing at me?" And he goes, "Do you know how lucky you are?" I'm like, "No." He goes, "You went through a bad storm. Your boat did fine. You did fine. Your husband did fantastic. And you're still out here sailing." He said, "Do you know how many people give up? They get in their first bad storm and they sell everything and they go back on land." He goes, "The chances of that ever happening to you again are about zero." He goes, "You made it. You did it. You're still out here." And he was the only person on the planet that could have looked at me and said that to me. And I believed him because he was my mentor. So, sure enough, I stayed in, we crossed our next ocean and it was wonderful and beautiful. And 8 years later, we're still here. But if I hadn't met that man in that harbor at that moment, it would have been a totally different journey. So that's why I truly believe that this is a journey of destiny and fate and that we're meant to do this.
It looks like it's a journey of no return because you gave up everything, you sold everything, and
Yes.
went on this journey. How long have you been on the journey, and how many countries have you been to?
This is our 8th year, and we have been to 57 countries.
Let's talk about the different culture. When you get to the country, do you get off the boat? Do you experience the people, the culture? Let's talk about a few of the cultures that you think has impacted your life, like it's opened up your eyes to things you didn't know before you got there about the people of the land.
They're so vastly different. That's the neat part. Is in every country is different. The people are different. The cultures are different. And I would say the one overwhelming thing for me that I've learned is that every culture is beautiful. Every culture has beautiful people and beautiful thoughts and beautiful ways of living. And while they're not like our own, you can just when you get immersed in it and like we've had I can't tell you how many countries people have invited us into their homes. They know that people come in there by sailboat and they want to know you and they're kind to you and they extend their kindness and they show you places and they bring you places and they feed you the food and they actually take you into their homes and you just trade stories. And it's hard to point out like any one culture as being the best or the kindest.
Yeah.
I just want to say that there's beauty in every single one of them, and they're just to describe all of them would be very difficult. But we do that very well in our books. We talk a lot about the different places that we've been, which is why writing to me is important because I can put it all down on paper, and then other people can read about it.
What's the most emotional moment on this journey for you?
Um, that's really difficult to say. Do you mean a good emotion or a bad emotion?
A good emotion.
A good emotion. Okay. We were leaving Spain and we were heading to an island called Madeira, which is supposed to be one of the most beautiful islands in the world. And it's very well reported by all the sailing community and the visitors. And I was very excited to go there. I looked at the pictures and dreamed about it. And we started across, and the weather started getting rough, which is a common theme. The weather predictors can tell you what can predict what the weather's going to be, but they can't
Yeah.
tell you what the weather's going to be. And sure enough, the wind and the waves started getting bigger. And now instead of blowing 12 knots, it was blowing 25 knots. And people, there were some other boats crossing because sailors tend to leave port at the same time. Everybody's waiting for a good weather window, and one pops up, especially if you've been waiting. Everybody kind of leaves at the same time. So sure enough, I heard a boat with an SOS. They were in trouble. They needed to be rescued. Something went horribly wrong on their boat. And then I'm going, wow, Dan, this is getting really bad. But I was trying to be brave. And then all of a sudden, our mainsail, which we were trying to make smaller to have less sail up to make it more comfortable, got stuck. And we couldn't get it in and we couldn't get it out. And it's flapping around on the deck. And Dan has to go up again in big waves and try to lash it. And the halyards are flying all over. And I'm like, oh, he's going to get knocked off the boat. And it was, again, very traumatic. But he got the sail wrestled down and tied up, and then he came in. He said, "We have to turn around. If there's something wrong with our sail, we are not going to get anywhere to fix it on this little island of Madeira. We've got to go back to the mainland." So once again, we turn our boat and we head, back towards Lagos, which is a nice big city with a big marina. It's just like a day and a half sail to get there, or 2.5 day sail. And It was rough sailing getting out of the weather, but finally we did, and we arrived in a little tiny port. It was black as night. There was no moon. It's 3 in the morning, and we have to drop anchor, and we can hear the waves crashing on the shore. And we know if we make any mistakes, our boat is going to go on the rocks. So in the dark, with just a light guiding me, we get the anchor down, we get the boat secured, we fall asleep in our beds, and we wake up at like 6 in the morning, and everything is safe and good. And I'm looking back at all the things that went wrong and how we handled it and how we did well. And we pull up the anchor and we head off towards Lagos. And I just had the most euphoric moment. The sun was shining. It was beautiful outside. I have my fishing pole out trying to catch a fish. And I'm going, this is the most beautiful day. And I'm no longer afraid. I am no longer like, I no longer felt like bad things could take control of me. Yes, they happen, but they didn't have a hold on me anymore. And to know that I could get through this and I could survive and I could wake up smiling the next morning was probably the best moment.
Wow, as I'm listening to you, it's like your experience at sea is basically similar to experience on land, where we're daily going through different challenges that is either toughening us or building us up. Because every challenge you've had on sea has either built your courage, your confidence, your perseverance. And as you're speaking, I hear all of that in them. So beautiful to hear how you relate with nature and still able to become a better person out of this whole experience. And it's so beautiful as I listen to you here.
Well, thank you. Well, you either survive or you give up, and I don't plan on giving up. So,
I see that. I see that a lot. That you have a lot of confidence and courage to actually see yourself through this end. But what is a normal day like for you as someone who tours around the world sailing?
well, we are either doing two things. We're either in a port waiting to go to our next destination, or we're out at sea sailing to a new destination. And those days are very different because if we're traveling a long way, we have to do watches. We can't sail at night without having somebody up on deck and looking and making sure we're on track and that there's no boats to run into because, yes, that happens. We have encounters in the middle of the ocean where we have to change our course and steer around other boats and things. So if that's the case and we're out at sea, it's kind of a sluggish routine. We get up in the morning, and I'll wake up, maybe at 5 and start my shift, and Dan will have been up for 3 hours prior, and I'll have been up from 12 to 3, and we take turns kind of just sleeping and watching and eating and looking at our course and adjusting the sails, and I do all the cooking. So meal preparation when you're underway is really challenging. You take something out and you put it down and it leaves, it rolls across the boat, and then you get that back and you go to get something else and you grab the first thing and the other thing rolls away, and then the pan is sliding all over the stove, and it's a lot of work. So it's just tiring. Just daily life is tiring, but it's beautiful because being out in the middle of the ocean is just an incredible feeling. Like you're just a dot, you're just a speck in this vast sea, and so you see dolphins and whales and birds and just really beautiful things. And that's just a kind of a waiting game. When you're in harbor, you're just looking around going, what can we do? What can we see? Like the other day, we rented motorbikes or the little moped things, and we traveled all over the island and went and saw all the things there are to see. We go to cultural events. We're in the Marquesas, which is a group of islands in the French Polynesians, and a beautiful young lady had been crowned Miss Tahiti, and she came from the island of Oahu where we were. And so we went in and they had a special ceremony for her, and the men are all in their grass skirts with their tattoos playing the drums, and she's in this beautiful gown, and it was really fun to hear her story. And this little girl from Oahu became Miss Tahiti. We go to food festivals. We go to the local markets. We try the different foods from the different countries, and I learned how to cook with them and meal prepare with them because it's very different from going into a grocery store in the U.S.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of adventure and a lot of fun things to do on land, which like I said, is a very, very inverse process of being out at sea.
How do you sustain this lifestyle? Because you're always traveling around. So, how do you sustain yourself to keep it going?
Do you mean financially or physically?
Financially, financially.
Financially. Well, we sold our house and everything we owned, and we put that money in a bank. And I just write, and I make a little bit of money with my books. And we've had some very big expenses with very expensive things breaking, and both of our parents have helped us out financially.
Wow, that's good. That's good.
Well, they're both sailors. So Dan's father was a sailor, which is why Dan learned to sail, and my mom is a sailor. So we are living both of our parents' dreams, and they are
Mm.
very wonderful about helping us out when we're at our rope's end and we're like, we need help.
That's lovely to hear. But what fears did you face in the early days at sea, and how did you overcome them? I think you've spoken about a few, but if there is more that you would like to talk about.
Well, I faced a lot of fears because my sailing knowledge was more small boats, and Dan's was more larger boats and more complex systems. So for me, it has been a constant learning process. I need to know what every line and rope and halyard does on this boat. I need to not leave it in Dan's responsibility when something happens for him to be the only one that can run over and fix it. So I've had to learn navigation. Had to learn electronics. I've had to learn, you know, different things that were out of my scope and my repertoire before. And the longer we're out here, the better I'm getting at it, and the more confidence I get. And it just makes life easier because it's not all about him. He's able to breathe sometimes. But it's interesting because last night, there's all these boats in this harbor, and people will come up and start talking to you and introduce themselves. An 80-year-old man came up with his dinghy and introduced himself. He said, "Come on over for happy hour tomorrow night." So last night we went over to his boat, and this 80-year-old man had sailed all the way around the world by himself with nobody on his boat, a solo sailor. And I was just in awe because I know how difficult it is for two of us. So whenever you think that you're doing that and you're great, you meet somebody who can absolutely put you to shame. And this man's stories were absolutely incredible. I mean, just the things that he overcame and the challenges, and his whole life made us seem really really lame in comparison. So yeah, so number one, learning new things, constantly educating yourself, and remembering that you still have a lot more to learn.
Yeah. Well, I'm tempted to ask as you're speaking, because it's just you and your husband together now. So, looking at your love life now, the two of you, as compared to when you were on land with your children around, family and everything around, what would you say to it? The two of you living your life together away from, I wouldn't say all the confusion, because there's a little bit, you still meet people there, but it looks like you have time for yourselves more than when you were on land. Do you think your love life is any better than it was when you were on land?
110%. Yes, there is. We rely on each other so much that it's unfathomable. Like, you can't imagine until you are in a space this size living with somebody, and if you don't get along, you will not last.
Yeah,
And we have met many sailors who are single now, and their relationships didn't last. And if your relationship does last, it will be one that's, epic, because we just, I think you get a greater amount of respect because you know that you have to tread lightly even if something bothers you, because there is no other alternative. There is none. So we have a great amount of respect for each other's feelings. We try to anticipate more what that person needs and be there to support them. And it just creates a bond where even when we go off the boat, like, we'll be flying home to visit our children for the holidays, my children and my grandchildren, and I can't stand to be without him. Like, if he goes off and with the boys, I'm like heartbroken. I'm like, what? You're going without me? Because we're together all the time, and we're great with that. And I don't know if I could have stood to be around him all the time when I had my own life on land, because we had two separate lives.
yeah.
Now we have one life that's together.
Wow. How did you cope emotionally with leaving your children and grandchildren to pursue this dream?
That was probably the hardest part. That for me, because I had a very very wonderful relationship with my children. I love them dearly. They are the light of my life, and my grandbabies. But we only had one grandbaby before we left, and I told my children, when if you have a baby, I will park the boat wherever we are in the world. I will come home for a month and I will cook for you, clean for you, and help you with your new baby. Well, darn if they didn't have four babies the first 5 years we were out. And they did it on purpose. It's like, you have one this year and then you have one next year and she'll have to come home. So I'm just kidding. I don't think they planned it. But anyway, they had a lot of babies and we flew home a lot and we took care of them. Um, and before they had them, they did come out and visit us on the boat, in some different countries. And we had a lot of fun together. Um, but the nice thing is that we have this ability now to talk to them every day. We have Starlink on our boat, so we can call from the middle of the ocean. And anytime they call me a lot. They call me and they're like, "Look what my baby is doing," or such and such wants to say hi to Boat Grandma. They call us Boat Grandma and Boat Grandpa, and they want to see the water. They want to see the island you're at. So we talk all the time, and I feel really close to them in that respect. Is that we don't miss out on a lot, and a few, even 10 years ago, that wouldn't have been possible. So we do have that convenience, that modern convenience of staying connected. And we do usually get home once a year.
Oh, good, good. Let's talk about your book. So, how did writing become a way for you to process, reflect, and share your journey?
Well, I have the um, nonfiction book of our first 4 years out at sea, Riding the Waves of Reality, Tales of Turmoil and Triumph. So it was kind of nice to be able to write down everything and all of the adventures. And we are just as of today publishing our second book of our time in the Mediterranean, which was incredible. Um, and then I'll be writing my third one as soon as we get this one published. So I do write down what's happening, and I do that for my children and my grandchildren and for just people that want to learn what this life is like. But then I'm also a fiction writer. And the really cool book that I wrote is called The Seven, an odyssey of seven horses and seven souls. And it's about seven people from all around the globe on seven totally different places with different cultures. And I heavily researched the locations, the cultural history, their current cultures, and weave that all into the story. So as you read the book about these seven people, you learn about the locations, and every single location or character is somewhere that I know personally or have been or have a connection to. And there are seven horses in the story, and I go through the history and the evolution of the breed of each horse. So it's a learning experience and a story all kind of weaved into one. And I just loved being able to take what I know and expanding on it by learning more about what I knew by delving into the histories. And that was a lot of fun to write. And the people that have read it absolutely love it. And they said it's like, even my son, I'm like, you got to read this book because he's not a reader. He's like, okay, mom, I'll read it, but I'm probably not going to like it. And he finished, he said, Mom, that was fantastic. Like, I had no idea. And he was just like so excited that he read it. And that was probably the best compliment is when you have a reluctant reader who comes back and says, "You were right. That was worth the read."
It's beautiful to see that you are documenting your experience and all that. How is the book? How are the books doing? Is it on Amazon or where can people get it?
I All my books are on Amazon, but I actually have an author website called AlisonGieschen.com, and in that, with regard to my books, The Seven, I have something called the story behind the story for every single character in the book. So you can learn either why I know that person or that place, because I said they're all real places or people that mean something to me. And you can read the backstories behind each character. And also, there's links to every single one of my books there. And I have a mermaid book, children's mermaid book coming out. And it's filled with really great values and insights for children and good, it's just a really good, feel good book, but with a lot of good life lessons in it. And all of the sea creatures are real, and all of the information about the ocean is real. So the kids are learning about the ocean, and there's a glossary with actual photos and facts about every single sea creature mentioned in the book. And I have a seven-time international award-winning illustrator who illustrated it, and her illustrations are just magical. And I'm sure this book is going to win awards for the illustrations because it's just so. That's going to be released, I want to say, November 1st.
Hmm. I've seen the cover page of that book and it's so beautiful. I like the colors that comes with it, but it's also beautiful to experience the world through your words. Somebody who's lived it, telling the story and the experiences and making a story out of it. I think that's beautiful. And
Thank you.
I'll be happy to see one of your books and read it. And my daughter, who loves books, I'll if the mermaid one comes out, I'll get one for her because I'm sure she's going to like
Oh,
it.
thank
Yeah,
you.
she loves reading a lot.
I'm sure she'll love it, and just let her know that all of those sea creatures that I described in my story were avid scuba divers. So I go down and I look at these things up close and personal. I know what they look like. I know their movements. I know how it feels to be around them, and now all that is you feel when you read the story.
Wow, that'll be beautiful. That'll be a beautiful experience. During your journey, what have been the most inspiring lessons about yourself, about life, or about humanity?
I would say that, for instance, meeting that man is so inspiring because even though we've made great accomplishments, and like while somebody who's sitting at home watching this thinks that what we've done is great, I know there's so much more than even what we've done. And I'm always inspired to be better and stronger and braver. Um, and there's places where I won't go because I'm too scared to sail there. And this 80-year-old man in a boat, he's off going to places that I wouldn't go. And I'm like, well, if he can do it by himself, I can do it with my husband because I don't have as much confidence as I should have. So, meeting people who are really, really good experience. Like we met a man who solo sailed around the world 7 times.
Wow.
7 times. And when you meet people and realize you're just a drop in the bucket, yes, I'm a very small percentage of the human race who's doing this, but there are people that are so much more experienced and so much better at this, and that continues to inspire me.
Whoa. I think there's a little bit of feedback, but I'll carry on anyway, knowing that, knowing what the issue is. Can you share a moment of crisis or hardship at sea? I think we've talked about that, so I'll leave that, and then I'll move on to my next question. What has sailing taught you about embracing different seasons of life, growth, struggle, waiting, and change?
Well, we've learned a lot about struggle, and we've learned a lot about growth, and we've learned a lot about change because those are everyday factors in our life. You've got changing weather and changing conditions and changing situations constantly. It's a fluid life, literally and figuratively. Um, and it's just, I don't know, all those things kind of get wrapped up and are part of our daily lives. So I can't really point out any specifics other than I have. It's just definitely a life of growth and learning. And you have to be open to that. You have to just embrace it because if you're rigid, you won't make it.
Yeah, yeah. What would you tell someone in midlife or any life stage who feels stuck, longing to reinvent or step into a new dream?
You have to make a decision and you need to write down every reason why you want to do that and you need to think it through and you need to internalize it and then you need to do it because if you don't, life is going to pass you by and you're going to have regrets.
Yeah, yeah. I can't agree any less. I totally agree with you on that. Yeah, I'll leave it there. I totally agree with you on that. Looking ahead, what is next in your journey? Do you have new dreams beyond what you are currently doing?
No, finishing this dream is a very big challenge. We are still only not even quite halfway around the world yet. So if we've had as many adventures as we've had, enough to fill 3 books in these first few years, I've got a lot left to go. So we take it one day at a time, and our goal is to finish circumnavigating. And people always ask me, well, what are you going to do when you're done? What are your plans? We have zero. We cannot tell you what we will do when we are done because we don't know, and we're not going to bother planning it.
Yeah,
So it's
it's
the
like
whole part of being fluid and adaptive, and you'll figure it out when you get there. You'll figure
exactly,
it out.
exactly. Should we be expecting any more books from you as you continue to explore the world?
Oh, I will always be writing books. I'll probably have 20 by the time I'm done.
Wow. We would like to say a massive, massive thank you for coming on Podcast with Sheila today, Alison.
Thank you for having me, Sheila. It's been really fun talking about our sailing life and our adventures and our challenges.
Before I wrap up completely, can you just give us a view, your background view of the boat, the sea, what's going on sea. You showed me a beautiful sight just before we came live, so that people.
Okay, this is the island of Fatu Hiva in the Marquesas.
Wow, that's beautiful. The, the sea is calm, blue, and beautiful with the mountains around it.
Yes.
If you're watching me on TikTok and you can't see it, I'll suggest that you go to YouTube and then go and have a view of what she's just shown us. Is beautiful. Nature is beautiful. On this note, we'd like to say thank you very much if you've joined us. If you've been listening in, this is season 2, episode 142 of our podcast series, where we bring seasoned guests with inspiring life stories and experiences to share with us. Don't miss out on all these wonderful experiences. Subscribe and be notified when a new episode is released. Whilst at it, please drop us a rating. Our prayer for you this week is that you become an advocate and a lover of peace. Remember, change begins with you. Until we meet again, have a brilliant week. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheila.
Bye.
Bye bye.